next podcast powered by Rosentall Coaching. Today we're going to cover top 5 core values of a team which is high performing.
Hello, I'm Steluța Leo.
And I'm Gabriel Trandafirescu.
We are professional coaches working with leaders and their teams to unleash their superpowers and maximize results. If you're new to our podcast and channel, make sure to follow us, subscribe, and get notified whenever we go live. So, as a people leader, you have your own personal values. So do your team members, of course. Hard work, integrity, passion, growth, health, responsibility, humor, acceptance, and the list can go on and on and on. Most likely, it's due to these values that you are successful in your career. You might share the same values with your individual team members. You might have complementary ones or sometimes even different ones. And maybe we'll talk about that also. How do you align people driven by different values to work together towards a common goal and achieve high performance? Identifying a set of core values that they can all relate to and they can rally behind is a starting point. And this is what we're going to cover in this episode, as Gabe said. I'm going to talk about the top 5 core values of a high-performing team, because the top core values, the core values of a team are the beliefs that inspire a team, that drive the team's actions, and that guide their decisions. And a team's core values can be the same as the main organization values. They can be derived from them, or they can be very different at the same, or not at the same time. They can live at the same time, but be very different. So, Gabe, let's dive into the topic because it's really important to understand why the core values of a team are so important in a team.
Thank you, Steluța. So, indeed, they're so important because they are I would say, the main operating system behind everything else. And if you look at them from a viewpoint at the personal level, right, it's the same thing. So inside our, let's say, the core character that we have, our personality, we have values, we have things that we believe are correct. And based on those values, we have our actions, right? We cannot consistently do things against or opposite to our values and beliefs. So it's the same thing for a team. That being said, for a team, it's much more complex because you have the team dynamics that needs to align all the values around a core value, I would say, portfolio that everybody believes in and base their actions and thoughts and vision and purpose on them. So as you mentioned, as a leader, it's extremely important to have this in focus all the time and make sure the team rallies behind this set of core values and all the actions are according to these values and they confirm these values and beliefs. So this is why, to answer your direct question, this is why they're very important, because to have consistent results and consistent improvement, you need to have a consistent way of doing things. And when all the team acts as a unique and individual entity together collectively, of course, everything runs smoothly and more smoothly if possible, and they go towards growing and learning.
And if I might add, it's even if things don't run smoothly, right? When they know their values, it is easier for them to go back to their track when they derail from the track. It is easier for them to ask, what do we fight for? Why are we here for? And refocus themselves. I think it's the same thing as an individual level as well, right? When you know exactly which your values are, you can ask yourself, are my actions aligned with my values? I think it's the same thing. And when you're struggling, it's the same thing at a personal level as in a team. When you have differences of opinions, which are so common in teams, right? Because we are so different when we work in teams. you just need to, sometimes you only need to remind yourself which are the values that drive this team, and why are we here, why are we arguing, is what are we arguing for aligned with our values or not. So this is, I think it is really an activity that we need to do both at an individual level and as a team level, as a leader, to make sure that you know exactly which are the values that drive your actions, the values that you stand behind, that you stand, actually, yeah, that you stand behind when you're moving forward in whatever you're doing, right? So because we had a conversation before going live. We had a conversation on which are these top 5 values, because of course, as individuals and part of the team of Rosentall Coaching team, we have different values that guide us. And we were going through a debate, which would be the top 5 that we can see in the teams that we're working with, are the ones that stand out the most, and teams seem to be driven by. And I think the first one that we started with, and we agreed, both of us agreed upon, was trust, right? Because this is so important. I think for in trust is really important in any relationship, not only in a work relationship, in absolutely any kind of relationship. And I'm curious, what do you think about that, Gabe? Why did it make top 5 for you?
Yeah, I would add that it's not only for both of us, and these values are drawn from our experience with working with multiple teams. So it's kind of a compiled, if you will, result. So yes, these are also our values as a team at Rosentall Coaching, but they're also drawn from working with multiple teams throughout the years, and also doing some research specifically on values that we did last 2 years ago, actually. And these are some of the values that came back all the time from the leaders we talked to. So trust is all, like in any shape or form we did research, and also with us, it's a number one, because not only you need to trust the other team members that they are doing uh, their job, and that they are competent and you can rely on them, and you can have them responsible and also accountable for their actions and for their goals and for their KPIs. But also, I would say even more important than trust is, maybe I would put it like an upgraded, or let's say next level of trust, which is faith. And I think faith, and I'm not talking about in religious terms or even spiritual terms. I'm talking about practical, really practical business terms. And I'm talking about the faith in, first of all, a better future for the team, a better, like, positive outcomes in general, and the fact that the team is moving towards a specific vision, and they have a purpose. And faith, you need faith. Faith is like the ultimate fuel in terms of what makes the team move forward, as you mentioned, Selusa, even in very tough, rough seas, right? When things are not going smoothly. And faith makes you go back to those values that you mentioned and say, hey, guys, we have these values, we have these beliefs, we have this vision that we believe in. So we have faith, we must have faith that things are going to get better. And usually they do, like most of the time. Like, there's no permanent downward direction, as well as there is no permanent upward direction. So when things are rough, the team standing together and remembering and re-acknowledging their values, this faith and trust in each other is, I would say, the ultimate fuel and factor that moves the team forward.
So true. And what I want to add to that is that it's not only the trust and the faith between team members, but it's also the trust and faith of a leader in the team members, and also of the team members in their leader, right? So when we're talking about a team, we're talking about the team and the team leader, or the manager of the team that is running that team, that is leading that team, hopefully not only managing it but also leading it. So it's trust and faith, the values that we are talking about. As you said, we compile them not only from our own experience and from our own personal values and our own experience at Rosentall Coaching, but as you said, we compiled them from a research that we did amongst leaders. But just to make it clear that we're not talking about only about these values in terms of the leader, from the leader's standpoint, but also from a team's point of view. And these values apply to the entire entity that we are talking about here, that is a team. So the next one that I think it's been talked about over the past few years, especially in the light of the events that happened a couple of years ago. I think it's been already 2 years since that. We've seen a lot of organizations doing their best to move this value upward in the top of their values for their organizations. And I think it is really important to emphasize it, because it does, we all think and we all agree that it does play a huge role in the dynamic of a team. Let's talk about this value, Gabe, which is acceptance.
It's I would say it's a novelty in, as you mentioned, it's moving upwards in the rank of top values in the last few years. And that's kind of ironically, because in a way, if you're not accepting, and I mean fully accepting all the team members how they are, it's very hard to go about your work day by day. I mean, it's like always having something in your back, judging and resisting things, and blaming and others obviously for things that are happening, and all the other negative energy forms that in lacking acceptance that they happen. But as you mentioned, the past few years and maybe the global pandemic somehow boosted this acceptance as like very forward in top of especially corporate, I would say mostly PR, and how they want to see themselves, because this is the truth. And I hope it's also in the real team dynamics. They're pushing acceptance. And when I say acceptance, yes, what we see right now, it's mostly race, color, sexual orientation, and denomination and stuff like that. But what we're talking here is more than that. It's accepting everybody beyond what I just mentioned. It's just how they are, like accepting that everybody's different, and it's okay to be different in any shape or form, as long as all the other stuff is coming together in the team purpose, in the team moving together, in having a collective goal and purpose, and believing in each other and trusting each other, as we mentioned before, and not bringing in things that really obviously are I would say predetermined in a way to disturb things. No, but other than that, a high performing team accepts each and every one as they are, and brings together their differences to make something together which is collectively much better. And this is how I would look at acceptance. It's extremely important.
And if I might add to that, I would say, and the thing that is really important for all of us to understand is that we need to, from my perspective, when I talk about acceptance, I'm not only talking about acceptance of the people around me, but also acceptance of myself as I am and as I'm able to show up that day. And we need to understand that and to be really aware of the fact that behind any title in any team is a human person that comes with a story, as we like to say it, right? That comes with a story and that comes with a personal baggage that cannot be dismissed. So when we're talking about acceptance, we're talking about acceptance of ourselves also, and acceptance of our peers as human beings, not only as professionals, right? Because there might be good days, that might be better days, that might be could be better days for all of us. And I think acceptance needs to be expanded to comprise that as well. So not only, as you said, age, gender orientation, color of the skin, experience, but also everyday baggage, because what happens to us in our personal lives, we take with us in our work as well. And we need to accept these things, to be aware of that. And we need to also learn from what happens to us. And this will take us to the next value that we placed in our top 5 core values of a high performing team, which is growth and learning. And I think both of us, we're both leadership and executive coaches, and we work with individuals as well, not only with teams. And I think the growth and learning mindset that we talk about in at a personal level needs to be included. And the leaders that we were talking about, that we were talking with a couple of years ago when we did the research, agreed that the growth and learning mindset is hugely important for the development of a team and for them continuously growing and moving forward toward achieving the team goals and high success, right? Because that's what we're all looking to achieve when we're going to work, be highly successful, right? So let's talk about growth and learning a bit from your perspective, Gabe, and why? Because you've been working with teams for such a long time. And I think you have more to add to that when it comes to coaching teams.
Yes, growth and learning, I would say it's also um, kind of a newish value coming really high in the core values, because I would say in the past, maybe beyond 5 years back, there was this kind of value around excellence and close to perfection in a way, like doing everything right, and like we need to serve like everybody perfectly and stuff like that. And I think it's a good thing that growth and learning it's replacing it, because the value that I mentioned before is just not realistic and is not practical to strive all the time to be excellent and perfect. And we know that from working individually with leaders and executives, and it's the same thing with the team. So if you have growth and learning as a value and you base all progress on that, because that's what's happening, is happening progress. So you're learning from each iteration, each day, each client, each talk, each call, each contract, and you make it better. You have a positive mindset towards the future, and you grow because of that. So instead of striving every day and obviously many times failing, because you cannot be perfect, right? Most of the time, and even the excellence value is very, it's putting a lot of pressure on the team. So instead of doing that and having no, you have to be perfect and excellent all the time, you have to grow, because that's a natural thing. Actually, you don't have to grow. We just need to accept that we are growing, which each iteration, each instance of what the team is doing. So when they have this as a core value, they look through their experiences with different eyes. They look with a learning eye. They see, hey, we had this new type of client. What can we learn from this? We had this kind of struggles. How can we make it better next time? And then we go, because of this value, we always see a way of implementing, especially in the coaching, in the team coaching, a continuous improvement process, right? That we mentioned before. So growth and learning goes hand in hand with generating and consciously looking at the continuous improvement process, which we often work with teams and help them support and make it happen and have it in place for for a continuous period of time.
Yeah, what I wanted to add, because I was thinking as you were talking about the fact that I've worked for large organizations almost my entire life, professional life, and when we're talking about growth and learning, we're not only talking about going to the courses that the corporate or the organization forces you to go to, in which you anyway think best, better than the person teaching you, the person in front of you. And I've been in so many courses in my life, and I've been surrounded. And I have to admit that even myself, right, even though I have a growth mindset, there were courses, there were trainings in which I was going into because I was forced. Therefore, my mindset was, I know better. This person is here just to, there's nothing new that he can teach me. After 20 years of doing something, you think you know best, you think you know it all. And I just wanted to add that because it is really important to understand that when we're talking about growth and learning, we're not talking about the development, the professional development path that the organization places you on. We're talking about a mindset that helps you learn from the mistakes that you're making, helps the team learn from the challenges, not necessarily mistakes, but the challenges that they encounter. As you said, when something new occurs, the way you approach it makes the entire difference, like in personal lives, right? When something happens, how do you look at it and what do you take from it, what in order to grow and move forward further? Just wanted to add that because I remember all the times when I was going to those trainings that the corporations were was forcing us to go to, pushing us to go to, and we were going there like, we know it all, we're perfect, we don't need anything else. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about a value that you follow every day, in every interaction, in every team meeting, in every customer meeting, in every inter or how do you call it, interdisciplinary meetings, right, with other teams also. So this is really important to understand, and bringing that into in perspective, and having fun a bit about my career, my experiences with the trainings and courses in the corporate world. I want to move to the next value, which is humor, right? So let's talk about why do you think, and why do leaders that we were discussing with think that humor is such an important value for a team? Because definitely we do value it here at the Rosentall Coaching. We also make fun of ourselves as well. So let's talk about it, and why did we put it here in the top 5 of the core values of a high-performing team?
I would say humor acts like when you're most of the time, that I would say the best use of humor in the team is to overcome certain obstacles or blockages, or moments when the team is that's where you see it in action the most. But actually, having a constant like source and I would say bits of humor in the team culture is very healthy. It's like what they say, humor is the best medicine, and that's where they say it in a way of physiologically speaking, but humor is not only physiologically the best medicine. It's also in a psychological and how people interact with each other. And you can see that the best way when you see how cross-cultural, cross-race, cross everything humor is. And it's, I would say, the only energy besides love, which is also universal, right? But also humor is the only energy that can bind people together, even when they're very different. They have different opinions. They are from different countries, races. They speak different languages. And this happens in a team. Like, I know a certain episode in my team coaching career where the people were so different in terms of age, race, gender, experience, color. Everything was like they were one of the kind. In from 8 people, each one of them were like very, very different. And the only thing that actually bound them together at the time, it was a framework that induced a lot of humor when working with them, and they brought that to their core values, and they kept it there because they saw how binding it is and how healthy it is for them to be able to get energy from this humor. And I think it's extremely important to have that. And as you mentioned, like, even having self-irony and stuff like that, and not taking yourself too seriously, because especially because of different titles and like status and stuff like that, makes you a lot more human, and connecting to the human level within a team. So I think it's extremely important.
I couldn't agree more. And that is not to say that we're talking about, transforming your team and team meetings into stand-up comedy or anything like that. It's just the energy that lightheartedness that this value brings in the dynamic of a team. And just to share with you a humorous moment, some of the most fun and entertaining moments in my career in the corporate role was when we had team meetings that were so boring that we had team members falling asleep. So you can imagine how that felt and how that was for us, watching them falling asleep, and the humor and all the fun that we made around that. And sometimes those meetings were really, really, really bad. And what changed the energy of those meetings was actually the humor that we brought about, around the team member falling asleep and sometimes snoring. So, but this just, just that's, we need to accept that we are human beings, right? And there's nothing more. Uh, we all make mistakes, and we all can accept that. And sometimes we need just to have fun and just to, as you said, make fun of ourselves before anyone else does that. And with that, let's move to the last, but not the least important. So just to mention that these 5 values, this top that we compiled here, it's not in there's no order of importance to any of these values. We just added them and they made it to the top 5, but there's not one of them is more important than the other. So the last one that we placed here, but as I said, it's not the least important, is passion. And I think we have so much to talk about this, because I think that when passion stands behind, or you stand behind passion as a value, it shows up in everything you do. It shows up in your client interactions, your customer interactions, right? It shows up in everything because it's an energy that you bring to the table, to your work, that cannot be beaten when you're driven by passion. So what's your take on this, Gabe, when it comes to teams and teams being passionate in order for them to achieve high success? Because this is what we're talking about, right? So these are values that help organization and teams, and we've seen that are more present, more prevalent in teams that are high successful. So what do you want to talk about when we're talking about passionate team members and high success?
Yeah. So high performing team can indeed have a core value passion, and that's because you can passion can emphasize everything else. You can have skills, for example, right? A very expensive type of skill set, but however, if you don't have the passion to put it at work, all the other people interacting with you will see it. And that's when all the team members have passion, and everything they do has this fire in it, right? In a good way, a fire to build with, and to expand everything, because that's what heat of the fire does, right? Expands everything and makes it larger and makes it more intense. So that's where you also helps, where this value helps team move forward again with different opinions, with different views, with different, all the other things that are different. The passion binds them together, the common passion for the high performing of the team, right? This driver moves the team together as a unique entity because they believe and they have this fire in them to move forward and become high performing and even higher performing if possible.
Exactly, and there's so many other things that having passionate team members and as a passionate team brings to the table. So I was conducting a research last week, and I was talking to one of our clients, and he was telling us that what he's seen is that since he managed to bring the fire, the passion into his team and as a top value, he noticed that people are working longer hours without extra pay, which is so incredible because sometimes, that fixed amount of hours that you allot to your work, they might not be enough. Sometimes you need to go the extra mile, and teams that are passionate are willing to go the extra mile to achieve the results that they are looking for. They are going to push harder. They're gonna go and they're gonna stand behind your vision, and they're gonna move despite any challenge when they're passionate about what they're doing, right, about their work. So I think for all of us, it is really important to be passionate about what we're doing. And as you mentioned, you might have the expertise, you might have the skills, you might have a lot of history behind you, and when you're not passionate about what you're doing, it shows up in any interaction. I can tell you about that because I've been in the corporate world for many years, and I've seen people who were just, they were like walking dead in their jobs, like the Michael Jackson's movie, with the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's how they felt in their roles, and they did have the expertise, they did have the history, the experience, but they were not passionate about what they were doing anymore, and it showed up in every interaction between all of us with the customers, in their results as well. So it is really important because if you, as a leader, if you have a vision and if you want to achieve your goals, you need to have passionate people in your team to help you move the vision forward. So that was all I wanted to add, and just sharing some of the experiences from the corporate world in a past life. Gabe, as we reach the top of our time for this episode, is there anything you want to add as before we sign off?
Yes, I would like to call out the leaders now that are watching us and tell them again that it's very important to make sure that the team's value are aligned with the personal ones, and there is a certain core that brings together the people. Maybe again, some people have other additional values that are not the team core values, but at least they need to have a core portfolio of values that people align with, because otherwise all the beliefs and consequently the actions of their beliefs will, if they go separate ways, they're not going into the same way, and the team needs to go the same direction, and people to be on board with what they believe in and what they do. So I would say, even if they are not using team coaching for that, although they can, and we are working with teams to specifically for this, like specific team coaching sessions to align team values and to talk about them and to define them and to see how their actions are according to that and all that. But even if you don't use team coaching, you can do it on your own. And make sure you talk to your team and get those values out and talk about them. This is my last addition to this.
Thanks, Gabe. And guys, if you want to share with us the values of your team, the core values that you think your team has, feel free to either add it in the chat below or email us at teamx@rosentallcoaching.com. I think that's the best email to write us about that. We would love to read and see which are the values that are shared between your team members and the values that drive your performance. For sure, we can talk about values quite a lot. We'll stop here. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Follow our channel, subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when we post new videos. Meanwhile, until next Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, stay safe, everyone. Be well. Do your best to achieve high performance, but also accept the moments when you can't do your best. And see you next week. Bye, everyone.
See ya.